It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. I'm Matt Barbet. Tonight calls for an urgent review of the country's abortion laws. Sky News can reveal the number of women investigated by police over suspected illegal abortions has hit a record high. That's despite calls for those affected to be treated as healthcare patients and not suspected criminals.
It never leaves your mind. When you come home and you sat down watching TV, you think, am I going to get a knock on the door? Am I going to get taken away?
Coming up, I'll be speaking to a lawyer defending women under suspicion and a doctor campaigning for a change in the law. Also tonight, Nigel Farage sets out his ambition to be the real opposition to a Labour government. The Reform UK leader published what he's calling a contract with the people today. But speaking to Sky News, he refused to rule out one day joining the Conservatives. Plus, as another food supplier recalls products over fears of possible E.coli contamination, we'll find out how alarmed we should be and what we can do to minimise any risk. And we will go live to Germany to speak to fans of England and Scotland who had contrasting fortunes on the opening weekend of the Euros. All that to come and more on the UK Tonight. We're starting tonight with a very emotive and complex subject, calls to change the laws on abortion in this country. Now, you may be forgiven for thinking things are more straightforward than they really are when it comes to a woman deciding to terminate a pregnancy. But Sky News can reveal that a record number of women are being investigated for suspected illegal abortions. And that's led to doctors calling for the new Parliament to launch an urgent review. They say all women seeking to end their pregnancy should be treated as healthcare patients and shouldn't face criminal investigations. Critics say any move to change the law would be irresponsible and could lead to a rise in women having abortions by themselves with no medical oversight. Sky correspondent Molly Malone has this special report.
The house was still a crime scene.
Sarah is mum to an 18-month-old baby. But for almost a year, she was investigated by police on suspicion of trying to abort him.
Made to feel a criminal, like I've done something wrong to hurt my child.
She had considered a termination and went to the abortion clinic, but was 3 days past the legal limit.
I've left there, got in the car, rang the husband, burst into tears, broke down, really.
So she went home and panicked, searching online.
We searched backstreet abortions. We searched all sorts, the pills that they'd give you at the termination centre.
She says she didn't go ahead with anything. Days later, upstairs in the bathroom, she gave birth, 3 months prematurely. Her baby wasn't breathing.
It was blue in colour, no movement. Yeah, it was horrible.
She called 999. The police turned up before paramedics.
It was paramedics we needed, not the police. The front room was just full of police. The whole street was just full. I just felt like a criminal.
Her baby boy survived and is alive today. But for 51 weeks, Sarah was investigated, her phone and devices taken off her.
It never leaves your mind. When you come home and you sat down watching TV, you think, am I going to get a knock on the door? Am I going to get taken away?
The police involved with Sarah's case told us, as with any case involving the potential for the sudden, unexplained death of a baby or child, we attended to assist medical professionals and ensure necessary statutory processes were followed. This was a complex investigation requiring extensive forensic and medical evidence, and unfortunately these kinds of inquiries take time. Sarah was investigated under this act, dating back hundreds of years. Deliberately ending a pregnancy is a criminal offence in England and Wales, and it carries a potential sentence of life imprisonment. A woman can terminate a pregnancy up to 24 weeks with the permission of 2 doctors. They can have surgery or take 2 pills. Since COVID, both of them can be taken at home in the early stages of pregnancy. That change, say doctors, increased awareness among authorities about the ease of at-home abortions, with police approaching abortion providers looking for information about women.
What's your reaction when you respond to those types of inquiries?
I mean, absolutely flabbergasted. In no other field of medicine would you expect the police to ask for medical records. We think there is somewhere between sort of 50 to 100 who have probably fallen under investigation, but the majority of those have been in the last year.
Is that unprecedented?
Yes, completely unprecedented.
So you think the law is being used against women who want safe and legal abortions?
Absolutely, yeah.
In the year to March 23, 29 people were recorded as under police investigation. That's the highest number in 2 decades. But Freedom of Information data shows there's been a rise in cases going to court too. In a 9-year period, out of 17 cases that reached court, only 6 resulted in a conviction. That's just over a third. But in just 3 years, between 2020 and 23, 11 cases went to court. Almost half resulted in a conviction. Because of this trend, new guidance has been issued, recommending that healthcare workers shouldn't alert police if they believe their patients may have illegally ended their own pregnancy.
I certainly would like to hear if there is any public interest in prosecuting pregnant women who do this. It seems mad that we should pass them on to people who are in the legal system.
Before the election was called, MPs had amendments to parliamentary bills proposing the law should change to stop women being criminally pursued for trying to terminate their pregnancy. But others say that's a dangerous path.
I think it's a radical proposal that wouldn't make any sense at this point in time. It would only have the impact of incentivizing women to have late-term abortions by themselves with no medical oversight. The current law acts as a deterrent to stop this.
Police and prosecutors are keen to stress investigations for so-called illegal abortions are rare. They're only raised if criminality is suspected, and these cases are complex. But there is a tension to all of this. Is abortion more about legality, or should it be seen as simply healthcare? Either way, it's a debate, with women and their babies at the centre of it all. Molly Malone, Sky News.
Well, Molly joins me now in the studio, along with solicitor Sheila Keshvari, who's represented women who have been suspected of procuring an illegal abortion. And also joining us is Dr. Jonathan Lord, co-chair of British Society of Abortion Care Providers and NHS consultant gynecologists. Jonathan, if I can come to you first, people will be shocked to hear this is the case, won't they?
It is shocking. I find it impossible to believe, but the law is causing life-changing harm, not just to the women, but to their children and their families. And, the horrific way in which they're being treated. And one of our concerns is this is spilling over now, not just to those who've actually had an abortion, but also to those who are suspected of it, even though, in fact, it was a natural event, a miscarriage or a premature labour. And it's just turning their lives upside down. And, to be honest, I think this is a national scandal that we will look back on with horror and question how it could have been allowed.
Your language is quite telling there. Suspected of having an abortion, as if having an abortion, choosing to terminate a pregnancy, for many women is not traumatic enough. Being suspected of what could be a crime at a particularly vulnerable time in their lives must be hard for many of them to bear.
Well, precisely. You must remember that the vast majority of abortions in this country happen very, very early on in the pregnancy. And for that group, it's a much clearer decision. What we're talking about here is the tiny number that are happening later on in pregnancy. And that's always going to be associated, as you say, with the sort of full depth of emotion. So either it was a pregnancy that was lost and has caused, the heartache and trauma from that, or they were in such an awful situation that they felt the only way out was to take matters into their own hands. Either way, these people are victims and need compassion. They shouldn't be treated as criminals and threatened with up to life imprisonment.
Molly, as part of your investigating this story, doing this piece for Sky News and asking for that freedom of information to be revealed as well, were people surprised that this was now being looked at? As Jonathan said there, he thinks it should be a national scandal.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. As you alluded to there, you hear the word abortion and you think, hang on, of course abortion in this country is legal. And it is up until 24 weeks and in certain circumstances. But outside the medication being prescribed by 2 doctors, the permission of 2 doctors, and if you try and have a termination beyond the 24-week limit, then it is illegal. And I don't think necessarily that is known to many people. And look, the law is the law. There will be people that say, hang on, the law is the law and people are there to abide by it. And if you don't, then you face criminal sanctions. So that is obviously the other side of the argument and understandably so. But other people would question, is this necessarily the right use of, I guess, resources, police resources, a rise in investigations looking into these women? So there are 2 sides to every coin. But I think when you hear the word abortion, you don't think you would necessarily face criminal sanction for having one or being faced with a suspicion of having one.
Sheila, I want to talk to you about the legality of all this, or the illegality as the police may see it when they're investigating. Spell out for us the background, because it goes back a very long way.
Yeah, so we have the Abortion Act that was amended, but the offences for which women are being arrested now are the Offences Against Persons Act, 1861. They go back to that date. And I think that the time has come for us to decriminalise women in those acts, and so that they're looked after by healthcare as opposed to taken through the criminal justice system, which is just not where they belong at all.
Is that right to say about every woman seeking an abortion after the time limit? Is it the case, and critics will argue this, won't they, is it the case that some women are being very laissez-faire about what is a very serious situation?
I think that the number of women who actually go after the 24 gestation is so small, and actually, thinking about terminating or ending your pregnancy is such a huge decision for any woman that no woman makes that decision lightly, and most certainly the little number of women who do it, they are amongst the most vulnerable in our society. They have mental health problems, they're from abusive relationships, or they're young and might not even know that they're further within their pregnancy.
And let's just be clear here, there are circumstances post 24 weeks where a woman can have an abortion, yes, if they've been the victim of rape, if there are health issues, for example. So it can happen legally, but if it's just down to personal choice, then it can't, as things currently stand.
As it stands, yeah, it can't.
Yeah. When it comes to the might of the law pursuing the women that you deal with, that you work with, what's the impact like on them?
It's hideous. It's heartbreaking. The women that I've spoken to have had their devices taken. So you have a stillbirth. You're traumatised by that stillbirth. You are then arrested, either from the hospital or from your home. You're taken to a police station. You're kept in a police custody. You are then very often interviewed and then bailed out with conditions. Sometimes those conditions are non-contact with your own child. Sometimes your devices are taken from you. If your devices are taken from you, you can't be in touch with your healthcare providers. The stigma that comes with this, your child goes to school, they find out what your mummy's been arrested for, then suddenly mummy's a murderer. And it is the impact upon the women that I've spoken to has been huge. The mental health consequences for those women and their children is huge.
Jonathan, I want to come back to you because I'm also intrigued as to how healthcare professionals deal with this when they've suddenly got the police knocking on their door saying, well, as Sheila described it there, we suspect someone of killing a baby here, turn over what you know.
Yes, and one of the troublesome aspects was that in quite a few of the cases, it was actually the healthcare professionals that called the police, and that's why a group of organisations, the Royal Colleges and so on, issue guidance to remind healthcare professionals of their responsibility for confidentiality. And that's the key thing, that healthcare relies on that bedrock of healthcare being confidential. So if that is ever questioned, then patients won't open up to us. They won't be willing to share the most distressing and intimate details, which we need to know to be able to help them and to safeguard them.
But
And so,
I need to ask, and it's a similar question to the one I asked Sheila, have you ever known women coming to you late on in pregnancy saying, look, I've just got to end this now because I've decided not to go ahead?
No. I mean, I've had a long career in this field, and that has simply never happened. No woman is ever going to get to a later stage of pregnancy and suddenly decide it's not for them. It will only happen if there is some sort of calamity. And that's why these people are not criminals. If it happens, they're going to be victims of some sort of underlying trauma or abuse or assault or something like that.
Molly, just to finish things off, I mean, there's a whole lot of context around this that people will be familiar with in terms of abortion laws, how they've changed in America, and some would say they've gone backwards, how things are changing in continental Europe, for example, and France is looking at this kind of thing. Where are we at in terms of laws evolving, changing, regardless of where people stand on the issue of abortion?
Yeah, so a couple of things to say here. I think it's important to spell out one of the kind of main reasons that lots of people say this is happening, which is the law was changed in COVID, which made 2 pills that you can take as a medical abortion to be able to take them at home in the early stages of pregnancy. In England, that's 10 weeks. In Scotland, it's 12 weeks. That temporary measure they made permanent. So I think that really raised awareness about the ease of at-home abortions, which some would say sent police into kind of overdrive because they actually became more aware of how easy it was.
Is that what used to be called the morning after pill? Or is it, but it's different. It's
the 2 pills that you can take to bring on an abortion.
Yeah.
So that was the kind of law that changed things. But in terms of changing the law further, there had been numerous attempts to decriminalise it, which is bringing it into line with places like Northern Ireland in 2020. There were various amendments to the Criminal Justice Bill, which were victim to the wash-up period in Parliament, which is where they shut down before the election. There will be some that will seek to bring those amendments back to Parliament, and that's basically stopping criminal sanctions. So it's not completely necessarily taking away the gestation limits of 10 weeks and 24 weeks. It's just stopping women being criminally pursued. And I think if MPs were going to have a vote on that, it would be presented as what's known as a free vote, which is a conscience vote, whereas it divides political parties. So you had Caroline Notes, the Conservative Party, sign it, but it was bought by Labour MPs. It's a conscience issue rather than a party political one.
Molly, thanks to you. Sheila and Jonathan as well, thanks both to you as well for joining us here on the UK Tonight. Now, Nigel Farage has refused to rule out one day joining the Conservative Party. The Reform, again, by the way, he used to be a member years ago. The Reform UK leader set out what he called his party's contract with the people today. It's what many would actually describe as a manifesto. Speaking to Sky News, he said his party wants to establish what he called a bridgehead in Parliament, claiming the Conservatives will not be able to provide effective opposition to a Labour government. Our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates, has more.
Merthyr Tydfil in Wales, the birthplace of the Labour movement and one of the most deprived parts of the country. This isn't what big party manifesto launches usually look like. But then this is no usual manifesto launch. Reform UK say it's their contract with the public. One man centre stage and relishing it.
Guess who's back? Back again.
Even Nigel Farage admits this is not a plan for government.
We are not pretending that we are going to win this general election. Our aim and our ambition is to become a real opposition to a Labour government.
The contract packed with policies beyond immigration and at enormous, eye-watering cost.
You're proposing to spend an extra £141 billion every year. That's about 30 times the amount that Labour are going to spend, 3 times the amount that Liz Truss promised to spend. The scale of this, it's deeply unserious, isn't it?
That's right, it's radical, it's fresh thinking, it's outside the box. No apologies from me on this whatsoever. This would represent a fundamental transformational change within the British economy.
The party could win millions of votes, but is unlikely to end up with more than a handful of seats. So would Nigel Farage consider joining the Tories, as some in that party want?
Good Lord, no. They don't. I mean, the Tories don't agree with any of that.
Is that a categorical rejection?
Oh,
of
look, I can't tell you what I'm having lunch in 5 years' time, can I?
Can't you? You won't rule it out.
The ambition. I'm ruling it out. The ambition.
Okay, you are ruling out joining the Conservative Party at any point after the selection.
The Conservative Party need to be replaced.
But you are ruling out joining the Conservative Party, even if you're an MP in the next Parliament, at any point. I just want a categorical statement to that fact.
That is absolutely not on my agenda. And I can't rule out being dead within 5 years.
OK, I think we can hear that you're not ruling out membership of the Conservative Party.
I might be dead.
Nigel Farage brands himself a straight talker, but unusually evasive about his own future. Here, 170 miles away from Westminster, determined to show he will take on the other party leaders. Now, Reform may not win a single seat at the general election, but are any of the other leaders brave enough to take him on directly?
Well, you certainly get a lot of noise from Nigel Farage, but I'm focused on the real choice in this election. 14 years of failure under the Tories, or a fresh start with Labour, and all the noise is off. Don't change that central choice, which is what's going to be on the ballot.
Nigel Farage's entrance into the campaign has been a nightmare for the Prime Minister. One of his top ministers admitted this morning that the Tories are now unlikely to win this election. He can't deny how difficult it is.
Of course I understand people's frustrations with that. I mean, that's undeniable, and I've been very clear that we have made progress, but there is more to go. But the point now is we are on the right track, and this election is about the future.
Nigel Farage wants to sign a contract with the electorate, but he is a man who changes politics in often unpredictable ways. Does even he know what his future looks like after Election Day? Sam Coates, Sky News, Merthyr Tydfil in Wales.
Still to come here on the UK Tonight. A third food company recalls one of its products over E.coli fears. Also ahead, gun crime falls in London after a police blitz on firearms. And Rod Stewart is defiant after he was booed by his own fans in Germany.
I'm Martin Brunt, and I'm Sky's crime correspondent. My most memorable story was, and still is, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann.
Please, please do not hurt her. Please give our little girl back.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news.
For detectives, the first 48 hours after a murder are crucial in the search for clues. The public expects them to find Jill Dando's killer soon. The British detectives are planning to meet forensic experts, academics, and even witch doctors.
I remember the grimmest case, the Soham murders of schoolgirls Holly and Jessica. I felt I can't undo what's happened, but I can help explain it.
Ian Huntley was arrested and charged within a fortnight of the murders.
I've never murdered anyone. I've never raped anyone. What am I in jail for?
The parole board has to decide if Bronson needs to be kept locked up for the safety of the public. My biggest challenge was to persuade a jailed diamond thief to answer my letters. Martin Brunt, Sky News, at the Old Bailey.
Now, possible E. coli contamination has led to a third company recalling some of its food products. A vegan chicken and bacon wrap, which is only sold at WH Smith, has been recalled by a manufacturer called This. It comes days after the Greencore Group and Samworth Brothers Mountain Wood recalled a variety of sandwiches, wraps and salads sold in major supermarkets. Joining me now is microbiologist Dr. Sarah Pitt from East Sussex. Sarah, thanks very much indeed for joining us. First and foremost, E. coli is pretty serious.
Yes. So it's kind of a normal bacteria that lots of people have and lots of animals have in their normal, in their normal feces. And we've been talking about E. coli quite a lot, haven't we, because of the fecal contamination, sewage contamination of water. But what we're looking at here is a special strain that's kind of unusual and produces a toxin. And that is why people are getting so very seriously ill, because it's not like normal E. coli. It's actually much nastier than that.
And without discussing the processes of these food companies, is it quite easy for it to slip through the net? Is it a hard thing to deal with?
Yes, it can be, because it's found in soil and water and so on. The contamination can happen at the time where the salad is actually growing. And if it's not washed thoroughly, properly at the processing plant, then it can easily spread that way. The other thing that can happen is the contamination can get in to the processing plant itself. And so obviously, because it's bacteria, you can't see it, you don't know that the contamination is there. And because all sorts of sandwiches, wraps, salads and things, they're so common now that the pre-prepared lunches like that sort of is so common. One manufacturer might actually be supplying a lot of different companies, and so it's actually quite difficult to get to the bottom of where these salad leaves actually came from in the first place, because it's so widespread, as we're seeing there are cases all across the country.
Well, let's get into, Sarah, just to finish off, how we can protect ourselves from this, because we've all lived through the pandemic. We all remember to wash our hands, or certainly we're told to. It's down to sort of personal hygiene choices that mean E. coli could be spreading even further than just the first person consuming that sandwich.
Yes, that's right. So the thing is that if most normal or healthy adults will have diarrhea, it could be very, very nasty. But what you don't want to do is spread it any further, as you say. So the thing to do is follow very good hand hygiene, and also don't go to work, don't go and visit your elderly relative, or don't go and visit friends or family who have very young children, because those are the most vulnerable here, or all the time that you actually have diarrhea, in order to try and not spread it to any further to other people. That's right.
But just finally, Sarah, is that happening? Is it spreading that way? People are forgetting, they're being a little bit lax with washing their hands and not seeing people?
I don't know whether we even have that level of information, really, but I suspect that it might have happened in a few cases. Although, having said that, the diarrhea that even normal healthy adults get is actually really rather nasty. So I suspect that people are probably just staying in bed, and I hope drinking lots of fluids and trying to look after themselves, and perhaps aren't well enough to go out and about, which is good in terms of not spreading the disease. It's bad for them, but it's good in terms of trying to keep the disease under control. Because since we don't actually know the source of it yet, we all need to take all precautions that we can.
Certainly good advice. Sarah, thank you very much indeed. That's Dr. Sarah Pitt, a microbiologist at Brighton University. Well, we asked to speak to the Food Standards Agency tonight. They sent us this statement in response. They say this is a complex investigation, and we have worked swiftly with the relevant businesses and the local authorities concerned to narrow down the wide range of foods consumed to a small number of salad leaf products that have been used in sandwiches, wraps, subs and rolls. Following thorough food chain analysis, these products are being recalled as a precaution. They go on, the FSA is here to ensure that food is safe. If there are products on the market that are not, we won't hesitate to take action to remove them. Next, the Metropolitan Police say a blitz of firearms seizures in London has led to a record drop in gun crime. 386 guns were seized last year, with firearms offences now at their lowest level in 15 years. Our crime correspondent Martin Brunt was given access to one of the Met's latest raids.
the child's room.
Detectives knew there were guns somewhere in the home of Danny Butler, armourer to a South London gang. They didn't expect to find them hidden in his children's underwear drawer, 3 handguns, one of them loaded. And that wasn't all. A sawn-off shotgun and 2 others were hidden elsewhere in the house, along with lots of ammunition. The Metropolitan Police says its blitz on illegal firearms has led to a record drop in gun crime in the capital.
We seized 386 firearms last year, but we also saw the lowest levels of gun crime in London for the last 15 years. We detect over 1 in 2 gun crimes. 52% of gun crimes were detected last year, highest figures for 11 years.
A year ago, Tyrese Miller, 22, was shot dead on his way home from a night out with friends.
You know, firearms, it's got no place. It's got no place here. All of us need to get together, work together. We need to stop this. And it's not about black on black crime. This affects everyone.
The number of gun-related murders in London was down to 8 last year. Gun crime in the capital may be down, but the national picture is rather different. Up 9% last year, according to the Office for National Statistics. For all its success, the Met is still failing to solve almost half of its gun crime. And that includes, for the moment at least, the drive-by shooting of 4 people at a London restaurant last month. A 9-year-old girl is still critical in hospital. No one has been arrested. Martin Brunt, Sky News.
Still to come on the UK Tonight. We will go live to Germany to speak to England and Scotland fans who've experienced some contrasting fortunes on the opening weekend of the Euros. It is safe to say that there were mixed fortunes for the home nations at the Euros in Germany over the weekend. Scotland kicked things off on Friday with high hopes, playing the hosts Germany in Munich. It wasn't an easy one, though, because things quickly went wrong for the Scots. They were 2 goals down after 19 minutes, eventually losing 5-1 and finishing with 10 men. A better start, though, for England. They beat Serbia narrowly in Gelsenkirchen last night, Jude Bellingham scoring the only goal of the game after 13 minutes. Scotland fan John Bleasdale is in Cologne, and we'll be speaking to an England fan in a second. But, John, to you first. I see you've already picked up some merch, so things aren't looking too bad.
Yeah, we're just having a good time so far as possible can. The trip's been good so far, bar the 9 minutes on Friday. But yeah, it's going the occasion as much as we can, because we don't get to these finals very often.
When I was talking to fans or listening to fans at a pub in Dunfermline on Friday, they were talking about a 2-0 win, a 6-0 win for Scotland. I mean, you must have felt quite deflated, especially with a sending off so early on as well.
Yeah, I mean, my words to people were I didn't think they'd get humiliated, and that's exactly what happens. The signs were there from the opening minute when Germany had the chance to the keeper makes the save, and then we lose a goal after 10 minutes, so you're up against it. Then to lose one quickly after that was even worse than England. It's 10 men. The game's done by half time. And you know, all these 6 months since we draw, looking forward to that fixture and seeing it pan out the way it did, it's just, yeah, it's really demoralising.
I bet it is. It was always going to be difficult, though, right? And looking on the bright side, following Scotland to a tournament is not something you've been able to do for a long, long time because, of course, the pandemic made things difficult last time round.
Yeah, well, the last tournament didn't really feel like a proper tournament because 2 games were at Hampden. It was COVID restricted. It was only 12,500 at each game. It just didn't really have that feel. Whereas this is the first proper tournament we've been at since '98, and that's why so many were just wanting to, just come out and really enjoy it and come to continental Germany as well. So, that's why we're just hoping to make the most of it.
How are you finding Cologne, and how are you enjoying the German hospitality? And I gather you've quite enjoyed some of the local delicacies.
Yeah, Cologne's been great, but it's a lovely city, and the square that we're at just Heumarkt is, as you can see behind me, it's just a good chilled atmosphere. It's just a really good chilled atmosphere, and everyone's downstairs, and yeah, the delicacies have been good, and the currywurst and bratwurst have been very nice, and the sauce has gone down well too. So yes, the Germans have been fantastic. They're great hosts, no complaints.
Did you watch the England game last night? And who were you cheering for?
No comment. I did watch the game though. I don't think England played particularly well, but they won the game.
They did win the game. Look, I appreciate you, John, being diplomatic there. No comment. I'm surprised, actually. You'd be forgiven for supporting Serbia. You are allowed, you know.
Yeah, no, but yeah, no comment. I just watched the game, and I'll just say that it wasn't the outcome I wanted. But listen, I'm here as a Scotland fan first and foremost. It's all about us from my point of view. I'd rather see Scotland do well than England not do well, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, look, that is a fair point and nicely put. And frankly, I think the Tartan Army is winning in the battle of just fandom and coming with a lot of optimism. So, John, appreciate you joining us from Cologne. Thank you very much. I hope it gets better during the tournament. We're going to cross live now to Gelsenkirchen, and we can speak to England fan Will Roby. And Will, you've got quite the setup there. Just describe to people where you are.
So I'm actually currently parked up right outside a tennis court. I've driven, me and my twin brother, we drove my camper van from Dover on Saturday morning, drove through France, Belgium, the Netherlands. And yeah, we got to, I'm going to pronounce it so wrong, Gelsenkirchen the other day. And we stayed here last night after the England game. And then we'll head to Frankfurt tomorrow for the game on Thursday.
I mean, to be honest, I wasn't referring to the parking spot outside a tennis court. I was referring to your like home on wheels. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, it's good. I converted it a couple of years ago. You know, it's got a fridge, oven. It's better than my house at home, to be honest with you. It's got everything you need. The fridge is stocked. I've just gone and had a local Italian for dinner. So I think you just said to the Scottish guy there about taking in the culture, but I think I'm going the opposite.
Yeah, well, look, Italy's not too far away. I mean, you know, it's kind of international food. That's fair enough. But you know, you must try some of the German. You must try some of the German cuisine. Let's talk about the game last night. There'll be plenty of non-football fans watching, going, "Oh God, here we are again. It's it's another football tournament. Why should I care?"
Yeah.
But England's generation right now is arguably the best they've had in, well, forever, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, the squad we've got at the minute is ridiculous. It's just trying to get all of the players to actually play as a team. And I think the first half last night was actually great, you know, especially at the racecourse, which is where we were for the fan zone. You know, everyone was really enjoying it. And the second half, obviously, it calmed down a little bit. The rain was coming. We had a lot of pressure from Serbia. But I think, you know, it's the first game. We'll take the win and then obviously move on to Thursday.
Do you think that's the way to look at it? Just getting points on the board, even if it was only a 1-0 win against a lowly-ish side like Serbia, that's what matters more than playing with style and finesse and looking like you're going to storm the whole tournament?
Oh, yeah, I think there's there's such a thing, isn't there, at the minute about British media, and I think, 3 points is the biggest thing.
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about, Will.
Yeah.
We're very fair.
Yeah, well, I know the second half wasn't great. First half was good, some good performances. Bellingham, I thought Trent did well. And, you know, it's the first game, 3 points in the bag, which is the main thing. And to see how far we can go, really.
Yes, well, that is the big question, because a lot of the people who know plenty about football and write about it professionally all the time are saying if England do not win the whole thing with these players, that's a failure. What do you think?
We've said that in the past, haven't we, with the golden generation of Lampard, Rooney and Scholes and all those players. The big challenge, which we always have, is playing the better teams, France, Belgium, the likes of those teams, which that's when it's going to be interesting to see, can we actually, get the results. But last night, it was the first game, 3 points in the bag. So we should, fingers crossed, win the group. And then, we'll see what happens from there.
Well, winning the group means, in the first instance, beating Denmark on Thursday. I mean, you must be prepared for a load of Vikings showing up, because that's how they like to roll when it comes to international tournaments. Bit nervous about that?
No, because I've got my little bucket hat now. So I'm all sorted. So this might counteract their Viking outfits.
Yeah, I mean, it's lacking some horns, let's put it that way. But
yeah, I need an England flag, I think.
You definitely need an England flag. Will, appreciate you joining us. Stay safe in your camper van, and make sure you find a great parking spot next time as well.
Cheers. Not next to a tennis club.
No, well, you never know. You never know. It does the job. Will, thank you very much indeed.
Bye-bye.
Now, Rod Stewart has defended his support for Ukraine after he was booed by fans in Germany. He used his song called Rhythm of My Heart as a tribute to the people of Ukraine and President Zelensky throughout recent tours. But when he played the song in Leipzig on Friday, this is what happened.
Meets the sky will
As you can make out there, large sections of the crowd appeared to disagree with Sir Rod's decision to show his support for Ukraine. We've had a statement from Rod Stewart about what happened on Friday. He said, "I have supported the Ukrainian people throughout this war, from arranging for members of my family to take supplies to the country to renting a house in the UK for a Ukrainian family, as well as employing 2 Ukrainians as part of my touring crew. So, yes, I do support Zelensky and the people of Ukraine, and I will continue to do so. Putin must be stopped," says Sir Rod. "I'm having the time of my life, playing for German audiences, sharing some special memories, and I'm looking forward to playing my remaining dates there." Thanks to Sir Rod for that statement here on Sky News. Still to come on the UK Tonight. How Coldplay hope to turn the tables on plastic waste with their new album. And just how does Rory McIlroy bounce back from an absolute nightmare of a finish at the US Open Golf as his 10-year wait to win another major ends in agony?
Elephants do rumble, and the rumbles have got different meanings at every moment. They will understand the meaning by themselves. For example, some of the rumbles are like complimenting or Some of them are like not happy, and some of the rumbles are warning. And so the elephants will understand amongst themselves what the communication is all about. We have experienced it here in the nursery by seeing one of our orphans rumbling at a certain center, and then the other one who is a little bit farther away responding to that rumble, not the one too close. So that tells us clearly that they do have names and they do communicate to one another through those rumbles. It will be the matriarch that will give the names because the matriarch is in charge of all the rest of the herd. And the matriarch controls and make commands the rest of the herd. Elephants can communicate through the rumble, can communicate through the voices. They know the voice of one another. They know the voice of the people as well. They can identify different animals and different people by smell, natural scent, and not the perfumes. Regardless of the perfumes, they can really identify you by your natural scent, and they can communicate also through the same. They have bad days sometimes because when one is not in a good mood, you will realize that that elephant does not want to get close to the others, and that elephant is on his or her own. And you might realize some of those elephants, when they're in a bad mood, they want to bully everyone around. They do have different temperament, just like we human beings. Everything that is associated with people is associated with these elephants as well. Elephants stay in herds and families, and they protect one another in that family. And they'll always want to make sure that all the members of their herd are safe. And if a new stranger comes in the herd, they will not accept that new member right away. They will need to communicate to the new member and know why the new member wants to join them. And if they happen to find a young one, because they are very maternal, the females are very maternal. If they happen to find a young one, they'll always want to protect them within their families.
Coming up, Coldplay's plan to use recycled plastic bottles to make their latest vinyl record. But is it as green as it sounds? We'll be finding out. First, though, Jules is here with the sport, and we have to talk about Rory McIlroy. Look, England getting off to a winning start last night at the Euros. But the Northern Irishman's hopes of ending his 10-year drought for a major, and he's got 5, right? He's already done...
At the 4, yeah, he was looking for his 5th.
Looking for his 5th, I beg your pardon. But there's no easy way of putting this. He choked last night at the US Open.
He did, and it was really, really tough to watch as well. He had one hand on the trophy. He'd come from 3 shots behind Bryson DeChambeau, his rival. He had a 2-shot lead with 5 holes to play in North Carolina. He'd been putting like a wizard, and then suddenly the magic left him, and he missed a couple of putts that he would normally have sunk in his sleep. Sorry if you're watching, Rory, to remind you of these two, but firstly at the 16th, this is his first miss from inside 3 feet all year. Yeah. And what a time to do it. And then you could just sense that he was nervy.
How did he miss that?
That's the 18th. And that was the one. And DeChambeau had a short putt himself to then go and win it after playing a brilliant shot out of the sand. He didn't miss his. And DeChambeau took the win. McIlroy was not in the mood to hang around afterwards. In fact, he was already in the air in his plane flying home by the time DeChambeau was being handed the trophy.
And we know that DeChambeau, who won it, was understanding of that, missing those putts. He will know what that feels like. I guess the question is, can Rory McIlroy recover from this? Because some are saying he can't, and understandably, there's some real talent out there who are ready for any slip.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the worry, isn't it? There are so many good players now. You wonder, when will he get that next win? I'm trying to look at it with my glass half full, though, in terms of how he recovers. 2011, his famous meltdown at the Masters. The very next major, which was actually the US Open, he won it by 8 shots. He responded on that occasion and showed that he had the mental fortitude to do it. But this is a guy who, when he won that year in 2011, he went on to win 3 more by the age of 25. And we're all saying, how many is he going to win? This guy could go on and dominate for years. 10 years later, we're now sat here wondering if and when he's going to win again. And in fact, Sir Nick Faldo said last night in the Sky coverage that this may haunt him for the rest of his career. But he has the chance to exercise some demons in 5 weeks' time. It's the Open at Troon, and his fans will really hope that he can bounce back. So fingers crossed for Rory. Back to the present day, though, now, and let's see what's going on in the rest of the sport this evening.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
60, 61, perfect. 64, 65, 66.
Let's go, guys! Come on!
It's a tough session, this, because they've just been in like 20-odd degree heat in South Africa, and then everything works so efficiently out there.
Should we just explain it's 7 degrees and it's Manchester?
It's Manchester on a cold, windy day. Coming to this environment, it's grim. But this is what makes you strong. If you can run these times here, what are you going to run when you're in, you know, these faster races abroad in nice weather? Makes you tough being in the north.
And there is no better way to describe Keely Hodgkinson. A tougher, more determined competitor will be a challenge to find.
Ready, 2, 1, go.
Add world-class talent, and there's the stardust needed to make an Olympic champion.
Looking at the Mo Farahs and the Jess Ennis, it's like, how do they do it every year, over and over again? And I look back now and think, oh, you have done it now for a good couple of years, but it's just keeping that going, I think, is the one thing I'd like to do, and just keep reeling in the medals.
Hodgkinson shot to prominence as an 800-metre runner at the Tokyo Olympics, taking silver.
So far, I've medalled at every championships I've ever been to, which is quite hard to do.
3 women dominate the 800 metres. Hodgkinson, Athing Mu from the USA, and Kenya's Mary Mora.
Unfortunately, I've been second every time.
Easy.
Now I'm at a point where I'm like, right, well, how did we get that gold? And I think every year I've got...
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Thanks, Jules. Now, Coldplay say vinyl copies of their newly announced album will be made out of old plastic bottles. Moon Music is the record, and it's going to be pressed onto discs made from bottles recovered from consumer waste, with a special edition of the album to be comprised of 70% river plastic from Guatemala. All as green as it might sound. Joining me now is Lee Jeffries, owner of a vinyl pressing plant in Leicestershire. Good to see you, Lee. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm very much all for recycling anything, and it's nice when the artists get behind, you know, pushing for recycling and waste. One of the things that I've been kind of battling with and trying to get the message out since I settled my pressing plant in Leicester 2 years ago is it's great to look for bio-vinyls in all kinds of different places, but there's one place we can start that's right at home in the UK. We've kind of launched an incentive that basically records that are unsold, and there's millions of records in warehouses all over the country that haven't sold, and we take the centre out of the record and we can recycle 80% of that and put 30% of it into new vinyl discs. So that's a great way that people can also help recycle at home, and we get lots of record labels now sending in records to us saying recycle them, recycle the sleeves, put them in with new records because it's current vinyl. The other thing that people have got to look at with the whole vinyl thing is lots of the big manufacturers and the big record labels, your Sonys, etc., they've now moved after the crisis of no pressing machines, because Europe's got so many again. They've all gone back to Europe. So they say, let's use bio-vinyl and make it in Europe, when they go and use a load of CO2, bringing the records back to the UK.
It's tricky, isn't it?
And the easiest thing with all records to be made in the country where they're going to be sold, because they all come off a stamper. So I think there's a lot of confusion and a lot of distortion with what's eco, what's not. The easiest way is travel and recycling at home.
I mean, I'd love to ask which bands' records are coming to you to be recycled, but that would be a little bit unfair on them. Probably my dad's record collection, something like that. Being serious for a second, though, Lee, in saying, oh, they've got to ship this stuff around the world, blah, 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 is that letting perfect be the enemy of good when it comes to doing something to make vinyl more environmentally friendly? At least, I guess, Coldplay are trying here, just like they're trying to make their tour less CO2 intensive.
I get where they're coming from with it. There's only one place in the world right now that can recycle bottles into vinyl presses. And I actually reached out to the country because I also own a bottling business, bottling drinks. And the owner said to me, the problem is, Lee, at the minute, it's more expensive to create the compound to actually make the records than you'd ever be able to make a viable business.
But
So
Lee,
it's great.
I have to ask, just to finish it off, wouldn't it just be easier to not have so much stuff and listen, as many people do, just via streaming, which I accept it does impact because there's energy use associated with that, but just having less... I know you're going to tell me vinyl just sounds better and all that kind of thing, but it's just more stuff.
It is, but it sounds different. And if everyone did pre-sales and only manufactured what they sold, which we can do now, there'd be no waste records sat in warehouses anywhere. Therefore, we would only be serving up what was needed.
Do you know what? That pre-saling approach, you see it with clothes and you see it with... that probably would make a difference. There'd be little waste if that was the case, wouldn't there? Lee Jeffries, really appreciate you joining us. Wish we had more time to chat, maybe spin a few discs.
Welcome.
That will have to wait. That will have to wait. Lee, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much. Cheers, Matt.
It is time to take a quick look at the weather now. And an area of high pressure is building for later in the week. Is summer finally here? Tuesday, though, no, is looking rather unsettled. Today's showers are currently easing. They're now mostly confined to the northeast. And it's also rather cloudy over northern Scotland, Northern Ireland and the northwest of Ireland. Elsewhere, it will be a fine end to the day. Overnight, it'll stay cloudy for northern Scotland with some patches of light rain and drizzle. Elsewhere, clear skies. Before we go, just time to show you Saturday's Trooping the Colour from a unique perspective. The RAF released this video from on board a Red Arrows jet taking part in the flypast to mark the King's official birthday. Fortunately for the organisers and the crowds, the rain cleared just in time for the flyby, which included Chinook helicopters, F-35 jets and, of course, the Red Arrows, as always, providing a phenomenal finale. That's all from the UK Tonight. You can catch up on all the highlights on our webpage. But next, it's Yalda with The World.